Welcome to Project One. Building a strong community takes each one of us, and Project One is the place to start. 1 hour, one person, one life changed. On today's show, we'll feature an organization that is changing lives and transforming our community. So get ready to be inspired. Here's the host of Project One, Jan Johnson.
We want to welcome you to Project One, where we come to you every weekend to bring you information about amazing organizations in the San Antonio and in Bexar County that are making a difference in the lives of, really, we say from birth to senior citizen, or somebody said from birth to grave. And I'm like, I don't want to go to the grave part, but we are just so thrilled to welcome you to this program every week and allowing us to introduce you to these amazing organizations. And I read this really cute little statement. It said, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And I think that that is one of the things that we like to make sure that is in the forefront of everybody's mind about when it comes to the nonprofit organizations that we partner and we bring to the highlight, is many of these organizations are dealing with individuals that have been a victim in some sense of either neglect or abuse. And a lot of times they don't understand what the word nice is about. They haven't experienced nice. And a lot of times it's people that think that they're important that has not instilled being nice to them. And so it's just a real privilege to have Anais Miracle. She's the Chief Public Relations Officer for the Children's Shelter, and she is my guest today as we sit out here at the headquarters of Documation in our studios. And I'm just so thrilled, Anais, that you're here and that we get to highlight the Children's Shelter. Welcome to the program today.
Thank you, Jan, very much for having us.
So tell us about you and tell us how you got involved. You said you've been involved with PR for over 12 years, but tell us how you got involved with the Children's Shelter.
So I've been with the Children's Shelter for about 8 years, and so I was part of their program called Girls Inc. of San Antonio, which is a subsidiary of the Children's Shelter.
I did not know that.
Yes, and so now they are actually part of Avante San Antonio, but I became involved and served directly with our president and CEO, Annette Rodriguez, and so work in my area is more in public policy advocacy related to foster care, adoption, both on the federal, state, and local side.
Wow.
In addition to that, obviously public relations. And so media relations, being able to connect with listeners and viewers and readers about the mission of what we do. And so, our mission at the Children's Shelter is to restore innocence and strengthen families. And
oh my gosh.
If you actually look at our logo, it has a lamb, which obviously stems from innocence. And so when you had shared earlier about children maybe not experiencing niceness or not understanding what it is to have a trusting relationship with somebody because their trust has been broken, and you said, try to paint a picture for our listeners. And we're right on the deep of the west side. We are located at the corner of St. Cloud and West Woodlawn, and so we sit on 10 beautiful acres.
I just saw that the other day, and I was so impressed.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
with
campus.
Your facility. Yes,
we got some new swings for our kiddos.
Yeah.
But we do have an emergency shelter right there on campus, and so obviously our emergency shelter, we call our cottage, can provide care from an infant as young as a few days old until a child is 16. And so obviously they're there up to 90 days, but they can be with us up to an average is about 49 days.
Really? Mm-hmm. And how do those individuals get to you? What are situations that would bring them?
Right. So obviously children are experiencing traumatic events in their life. And when we talk about traumatic events, we're talking about chronic trauma stemmed from abuse, abandonment, and or neglect. And it could range from a variance of abuses, variances of neglect. And a lot of times children do come in pairs, right? They come in with their siblings. We have large sibling groups because San Antonio has a very large Hispanic population.
Right.
And so you have a lot of children who do come in. It's very seldom that you have one child who's coming in. And so they can come in 24/7, and typically they're removed because
who would bring them?
Child Protective Services, local law enforcement, Bexar County Sheriff's Office, San Antonio Police Department.
Okay.
And so we obviously, we get a call 24/7 to say, we have 3 children under the age of 3, and they're coming in from these horrific experiences or domestic violence situation or neglect neglect of the parent. And so we have an emergency shelter that provides the care that these children need on a daily basis. And so we provide them with everything. I mean, typically when a child comes in, they don't come in with very much.
No.
And so
probably sometimes just the clothes on their back.
That's absolutely correct. And so, I always say that San Antonio is a very generous gem in the Lone Star State. And I say that because during Christmas was super beautiful. It's always beautiful during the holidays, but throughout the entire year, we always rely on our generous community members to say, can you provide us with backpacks or, socks and clothing, anything that that an infant would need until a child who's a teenager is age 16.
And is that the oldest that you take?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Probably about 3 years ago, we started taking in older children because we started seeing a lot of older children being removed with their siblings. And a lot of times what you'll see is that in neglectful situations or, in any kind of maltreatment, the older child actually is the parent. And so,
and you don't want to separate them. You want to keep them together.
Yeah, we do. I mean, when you look at our cottage, we have boys and girls and then infants and toddlers. And so, it's very hard for people who've never experienced this type of, or been in a situation where they look at, okay, this is an emergency shelter. This isn't where they just go in for a couple hours and they go back home. This is temporary home for them.
That is really their saving place. That's their safe place.
That is our safe place. And we always talk about, we are a trauma-informed care organization, so we operate on 5 principles, safety, collaboration, trust, empowerment, and choice.
Wow.
And so giving kids choices in terms of what they want to wear or giving kids building trust.
May be totally foreign to them, too.
Yes, exactly. Especially if they're having to be parents, they don't get a choice in doing that, And so it happens right in our city. I mean, remember, we're the 7th largest city in the United States. I mean, we're growing. And I remember the Mayor Ron Nirenberg said by 2050, we're going to be the size of Chicago. And so it's
my word.
And so we always kind of think of San Antonio as a very small community. We're very grounded and rooted in our values. And I think it kind of shows and shapes what we do. That's one part of what we do. But along our campus, it doesn't look. People use the terms orphanages. I mean, that's outdated. But we have a campus that has a water park. We have slides, and we have an arts and activity center that has a 31 raised movie theater seating for them. I mean, our children get breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. 3 snacks a day. I mean, they get all of their emotional situation, so to promote the healing in them.
Yeah.
We opened up a Hope Center, which is a mental health clinic. It's outpatient, but we have 3 licensed therapists, and then we have 3 licensed social workers. And so we opened it about 2 years ago on October 28th of 2015. And so with the purpose of being able to provide those mental health services for children who've only experienced abuse and neglect. And so they're ages 4 to 17.
Incredible.
And in those 2 years, we've served about 742 children.
Oh, my word. That's alarming when you think about it.
That's true.
But thank God they had a place to go to.
Yes. And so say, for instance, you're on our campus, you see children who are coming in and they're being removed from these very, horrific situations. And so within a week, they'll start seeing a therapist. And so from our clinical perspective at the Children's Shelter, our clinical director, Rosemary Coates at the Hope Center, says, if you can mitigate post-traumatic stress and mental health disorders in children, within 30 days, if they can see a mental health therapist and start talking about and kind of starting the recovery process, you can start mitigating those post-traumatic stress symptoms.
Oh, my word.
So that's our campus, where we have, and then we also have, we have a medical clinic on our campus. So let's say, we have fever and we have colds, and, we have a nurse practitioner who's there on a campus and who can administer vaccines and, administer medicine. So it's really a full-fledged, integrated care, if you will.
Sure.
Then we have our treatment foster care program where, it's really about elevating the discussion about fostering in San Antonio.
Because a lot of these children, I'm sure the ultimate goal is to get them reconnected with their family.
Absolutely.
If the family is going through some kind of help.
Yes.
And getting the help, not putting them back into a dangerous situation.
Correct.
But then there's others where that is not going to take place,
That's not an
unfortunately.
option. Yes.
But to keep them in a safe place and then to get them to be fostered and probably even for some adoption
Correct.
as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
So tell
Yeah.
us about that link before we go to break, because I'd love to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So our program really provides the mental health training for families who are taking hard to place kiddos. I mean, when already it's traumatic to remove them from
So what do you
home.
mean by hard to place kiddos? What's the definition
Their
of that?
behaviors are stemmed from their post-traumatic stress. I mean, if they've been in an environment where they don't know, they have to go find food, or they have food insecurity, or they have never been to school. I mean, those kinds of
Are there kids really out there that have never been to school?
I mean, when you look at the California abuse case that happened a couple of weeks ago, I mean, those 13 siblings, they were homeschooled. And so, but then also, there's also an opportunity where, you have children who've never set foot in a school, and the number one reporters of abuse and neglect are teachers. And so,
So if they're not in the school campus, there's no way that someone could say, hey, what's going on with little Johnny over there? He doesn't look the same. Wow.
So we train foster parents to say, or individuals who have interest in fostering, saying, okay, look, this is what trauma looks like. This is how we can help you. You're not alone in this. We're providing with you with a support network, and we do coaching with them too, with other foster parents. We have amazing foster parents who have done incredible work. I'll give you a story. Bill and Kathy Friend. I love their last name. Their last name is Friend. And she's very gregarious, and he's really quiet. But they primarily take in infants. That's all they do, is provide care for infant children right from the hospital. Because unfortunately, obviously, children who are in the hospital and who are going to foster care, obviously there is substance use or use of illegal substances with the mother.
I'm going to stop you right there, Anais, because we're going to go to a break, and I want to continue this story because I want to hear. I want to hear how amazing it turns out. But before we go to break, if you're wanting to get some information while we're on the break and you're hearing the commercial about the children's shelter, go to this station's website, click on the tab Project One, and we'll have all of the information and how you can get in touch with Anais or the other staff, all the children's shelter. Plus, when we come back from break, you'll hear the story, but also find out how you can get involved. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Hi, this is Jan Johnson, host of Project One, and it has been an incredible journey so far with Project One, being able to highlight to you, our listeners, every week, organizations that are making a difference in the lives of others. Many of these organizations are known for helping the community, while others are less known, but still have an incredible impact on our community. I encourage you that when you hear about an organization that sparks some interest, check them out at this station's website and click on the tab Project One and connect with them. It's our listeners like you who have heard the cry for help from many of these organizations and have stepped up to help, volunteer, mentor, or donate. So will that be you? Our mission for Project One is one person, 1 hour, one life changed. Will you be that one person, and will you take 1 hour and change the life of another? Project One, connecting you to our community to make a difference.
We want to welcome you back to Project One, and it's just an honor. I don't want to take up any more time to be sitting here and talking with Anais Miracle. She is the Chief Public Relations Officer for the Children's Shelter. And Anais, as I was mentioning to you on the break, you're so passionate about what you do, and you're so good at what you do.
Thank you.
But I think why you're so good at it is you're passionate about taking care of these kids and what's happening. So pick up the story. You were talking about this couple.
Bill and Kathy Friend.
Yes. Tell us about the friends.
I think they've been fostering for a number of years. I mean, if 18 years probably is about right. They actually have biological children. They're grandparents. And in addition to that, you were talking about mentoring. Bill and Kathy Friend obviously provide care, temporary foster care for kiddos who are infants who are obviously withdrawing from illegal substances. And it's a very hard time for them.
The child is going through that.
The child is withdrawing. And so it's hard for them to eat. They're crying all the time,
Oh my gosh.
And we call Kathy Friend the baby whisperer.
Oh my.
Because, she can really help infants, and, they love what they do. The one thing that I would say about Bill and Kathy is that they build relationships with the relative caregivers or the parent of that child. Oh. It's very hard for people to possibly do that But if you're looking to reunify that child with the relative or the mom, then you build up the relationship. So she also coaches the moms.
Wow.
They go to the pediatric appointments together. She's done this for so long, along with her husband, that they maintain relationships with their foster kiddos. And
how many has she had?
Oh my gosh.
Or have they had?
They've had, I would say, more than 50 probably.
Oh my word.
But there's more. I mean, we've had foster families who have, hundreds.
Really?
Yeah. And, one of the things that I will say with foster parents is that obviously you will always hear of, well, they're doing it for whatever reason. But the number one reason I have heard from foster families is their faith. I think they're doing it for something higher than themselves.
Yeah.
They'll always say, there is something that I want to do, I want to give back, or I've had so much, and I want to be able to empower a child or a youth or the parents. And so Bill and Kathy Friend have been doing this for so long. They built up relationships where they celebrate the graduations of the kids who have been in their home, So it's not just temporary where we have this infant and, okay, goodbye, see you later. But they maintain relationships if the parents want to. And they start building this connection.
Yeah. So which is important.
Yeah, because it disrupts the child if you go from one family to another.
Yeah.
But if they're there and they're there present, they're there, for Christmas or holidays or birthdays or milestones, then it actually shapes the emotional and social connections of the child to say, you know what,
a grandparent, really.
Yeah, a godparent, like that's my auntie, or, and they do that. And so that builds even more character for the child. And so I think, fostering, it's really nurturing.
Yes. Yes.
And so, I mean, they always say that touch, infants can literally die. People can die without emotional connection.
I can't even fathom that. And when you talk about that, it's not only in a specific area of San Antonio, but it happens all over.
Correct.
A zip code is not what determines this.
Yeah.
And to know that there are people that have taken their time and taken their lives to be able to hold or nurture or encourage not only the child, but to bring that restoration with the parent. What an incredible blessing.
Right. And the family, I mean, it's like going back to the whole family becomes part of this.
Yes.
But
you mentioned that very good point, if the parents allow it.
Yeah, afterwards, and sometimes it can probably be very hard for parents to say, okay, I'm needing help.
Yeah.
And
they're probably embarrassed or feel ashamed.
They're young sometimes. And sometimes you have to kind of peel back the layers and say, okay, so this has happened to this situation for this child. But if you look at the parent, what has occurred with the parent?
Yeah.
And then
they may be they may have been in that same situation and don't know any better.
Correct.
So to have someone come in and show them purpose,
right,
and what's being provided for them is amazing. So how would our listening audience, and again, Project One, our whole emphasis on IES is to say, if you take one person, 1 hour, one life is changed on a week, on a month, whatever their schedule is.
Right.
But you can make a difference in the life of somebody else, whether it be an adult. And of course, all of the organizations that we've featured, we've had all different types of organizations, all different need levels as well. But when we get calls back or we get letters or emails, like I often get, where somebody says, I heard the program and I went down and I did not realize I was only going to, take a carload of clothing down there, but it just pulled on my heartstrings and now I'm involved. How would people and our listeners, and we've got very loyal listeners who love to get involved, how could they get involved in either volunteering on the campus or being a mentor to these kids or possibly even fostering?
Yeah.
How do they go about that?
So we have a great website, is childrenshelter.org. So obviously they can go in there if they're looking to foster or even adoption that happens naturally. They most certainly can find those options for them and attend inquiry meetings that happen every other week, that they can be able to find that information. If they want to volunteer, 18 years of age and older, pass a TB test, pass an FBI background check, go through some training called trauma-informed care, being able to understand where you find your strengths are to where, you want to be paired with a child. we also have a residential treatment center that takes harder kids. They're ages 5 to 12. It's in the medical center. But our residential treatment center really is a long-term placement. They're there for about a year. And so these children have experienced kind of the worst of the worst when it comes to abuse and neglect. And so they can't live necessarily functionally in a home. They have to be able to build social connections.
Sure.
They have to be able to, kind of rewire what they've learned and be able to function in a home and what that looks like. So we have therapists on staff. We have staff 24/7. And so we have mentors who go out there and build relationships with these children because it's a longer term facility.
And how long would a commitment be for a mentor that would go out there?
It just depends. I mean, they could go there once a month. They could go there once a week. I will tell you that we have phenomenal volunteers at both programs. We have a gentleman by the name of Courtney. Courtney comes over to our emergency shelter and he does birthday parties for our kids, right? He buys a little cake. Aww. He does the decorations in the cafeteria, buys and buys the gift. And he's actually in the military. So he does that everywhere he goes. And then we also have a program called Fiesta Wishes. And Fiesta Wishes actually does birthday parties where they do these beautiful, elaborate little personalized cakes for our kiddos at our residential treatment center. And called Fiesta Wishes.
And that's in the medical center, the residential place.
Yep,
okay.
And they do that, and they do special birthday parties for them. So, I mean, think of it in our home, right? Birthday parties are a celebration of a milestone, and it's perfectly normal for us to plan these bashes for our kids. For kiddos in foster care, it may be sporadic. Right. And so even though they're in an emergency shelter or a longer term facility, that doesn't mean that they don't celebrate their birthday. They just do it in a way where, we have volunteers who come over and do it.
Wow.
I mean, just as simple as a birthday, right, can make a simple impact.
Well, and who doesn't like to be recognized on their birthday?
Right, exactly. And so those types of situations that you have, I think when you look at, the people, our staff who work with everybody from parent educators who work directly with families to therapists to nurses to all of our staff to all of our volunteers, even our foster parents, there's something innate in all of us of why we do what we do and why it matters, right?
Yeah.
And so I think for us in knowing that there's opportunities in volunteering with children in any simple fact, whether it's because I want to come over and I want to rock infants or because I want to be able to, help fold laundry or whatever it may be. It's not a simple, nothing always goes simplistically. I think when you look at it, volunteering is something that you choose to because you're wanting to give back because you know that what you have is time and what you have is something of value, that we know children can have a significant impact in building relationships with a trusted adult. And so I think for us at the Children's Shelter, we rely so heavily on volunteers. And so we can't do what we do alone. And so that's why we always say San Antonio is a gem, and we are always very grateful. And I think there's always opportunities for impact.
In talking and hearing you talk about that, I had mentioned this in another show, but I love to find little statements that go along with organizations. And I've used this one before, but it said volunteers are love in motion. And for these kids, the mentors and the volunteers that you have might be the only loving, caring connection that they will ever have in their life. And it can drastically make a difference in how they turn out as an adult.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What would you encourage our listeners to do? I know there's lots of needs that you have, and I'm sure besides just giving of their time, giving of things that you need, is there a list on the website that people can find out of things that they can donate? But what is the immediate need that you have?
I think for us, obviously, is to help understand and inform San Antonio the need for homes. The need for, it's not just a bed, right, for foster care. When sometimes we say that, we just need a bed. But children in foster care, just like our own children, just don't need a bed. They need a home.
Yes.
They need a parent. It doesn't have to be two. It could be one parent, a trusting adult they can build trust with, but also an opportunity to go to school and be a kid, participate in extracurricular activities, go out and have weekend activities with friends, being able to really socialize, build up emotional connections, being able to get the help they need. It's not just a bed, right?
Yeah, it's a home.
It's a home. And so whether that's home is in an apartment, a condo, a home, whatever that may be, as long as a child knows that there is something called felt safety, like they feel safe, but that they also feel as though they're building trust, and that they understand that there is a network being built around them. And
Kind of a safety net network, really.
That somebody catches them, and sometimes what we see is that
They're not alone.
No, they have a lot of resilience, believe me. They're survivors, right? They're survivors of very significant events in their life.
But you take that survivorship and marry it with feeling loved and accepted and encouraged.
Right.
What amazing human beings.
Right. And so being able to inform foster parents that we know that these are not your biological children. We ask that you treat them as such so that they have value.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, some of our foster families may say, it's not what I did. It's actually what they did to me.
Yeah.
And so going to a website, visiting, and possibly being also reflective in terms of what they're looking for.
Sure.
Is it volunteering? Is it donating? Is it fostering?
Yeah, what is it that they can do? There's little to a lot, and that's why it's such a privilege to be able to take the time and talk with you today and kind of reflect. You've encouraged me, you've inspired me, and I've got a lot of ideas rolling around in my head right now. And I think about one of our neighbors around the corner, they're foster parents, and often they come down the street because we've got two precious dogs, and they'll bring their kids, and to see these kids that have just want to have the love and a dog sniffing on them is amazing. But it just takes one person.
Absolutely.
One person, 1 hour, one life change, or it can take a couple, or it can take a family. So, Anais, thank you for being with us today.
Welcome.
And again, you can go to this station's website, click on the tab Project One, and find out all of the information. And again, Anais will be at our mixer that we will have, or someone from your staff,
Absolutely.
the first week of April, and want you to come and meet them. But go check out their website. Don't wait to April to jump in and get involved, because you could be the difference in the life of a child. And we want to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.